Hi, I'm Miranda. Now we're going to look together at this painting entitled The Convalescent by a Welsh artist who spent most of her career in France, Gwen John. It was painted in 1923 to 24, and in fact Gwen John made lots of versions of this same painting. When we look at a portrait, we might start by asking what it was the artist wanted to communicate to us about the person they were depicting. What did they think was important to get across? What mattered less? We can look at what information they're choosing to give us about the person. This might be information about their identity, their wealth or status, their job, their personality, their passions or enthusiasms. This is an unusual portrait. In fact, we might question whether it's a portrait at all. Gwen John doesn't seem concerned to give us detailed information or clues on most of these things. And in fact, we don't know the identity of the sitter, although she features in lots of John's paintings. The woman's clothes and the room she sits in are painted with free brushstrokes and in pale, subtle colours. We aren't meant to focus on these details or what they might tell us about her, the way we might if she was depicted in rich, lavish silks, for example. Instead, the colour contributes to the overall mood of the painting, one of quiet and calm, appropriate to the woman's activity, reading. The sitter's face and body language are similarly calm. There are no dramatic expressions or gestures to interpret, and with her attention focused on reading, there's no eye contact to create an immediate connection for the viewer. At first glance, the sitter may seem passive, yet we can also see her absorbed reading as independent and purposeful. She doesn't seek our attention or approval. The title of the painting, The Convalescent, means someone recovering from illness, and perhaps we should see this more as a portrait of an experience than a portrait of an individual. Some people interpret the mood as sad or melancholy, others as calm and contented. What do you think, and what is it about how John has painted the subject that makes you feel this way? This is a self-portrait by English painter Stanley Spencer, painted in 1939. Self-portraits can be an amazing opportunity to witness an artist dealing with a subject they know incredibly well, themselves. For some artists, painting their own likeness might be a convenience, allowing them to work through artistic challenges without the expense of a model. Self-portraits also offer artists a different kind of freedom from other portraits. There's less likely to be a sitter or other external commissioner to please or flatter, so they're free to be more experimental, perhaps even more honest. That said, many self-portraits are likely to be every bit as carefully constructed as any other kind of portrait, if not more so. This is the artist presenting their image to the world. Think about the care some of us take over the images of ourselves we present through the photos we share. As with other portraits, we should ask ourselves what the artist is hoping to communicate and what artistic choices they have made to create the desired impact. Looking at Stanley Spencer's self-portrait, one thing is made very clear to us: his role as an artist. Spencer shows us himself in action with the tools of his trade, the artist's palette and paintbrush. The palette takes up almost a third of the composition, blocking our view of the artist, and at the same time, along with the paintbrush, framing his face. The composition of the painting also serves to focus us in on what is important. Unusually for a portrait, the painting is wider than it is tall. In fact, we call this landscape orientation. Spencer is not concerned to show us his whole body, and instead offers a cropped-in image. We even lose the top of his head. The focus is upon his face, particularly his eyes, emphasised by his glasses, and also the hand which holds the brush, which seems to have almost equal status with his face, depicted as they are side by side. The strong lighting draws attention to the intensity of his expression, holding his own gaze in the mirror, or perhaps ours. What impression do you think Spencer wanted us to go away with? Perhaps part of what he wants to communicate through his unusual composition is that he is an original artist, unafraid to do the unexpected.
So there are lots of figures in this painting, The Last of England, but the two that really catch our attention are the two at the front. So the man is actually the artist himself, Ford Madox Brown, and the woman next to him is his wife.
And the artist, Ford Madox Brown, looks quite brooding, doesn't he, under that large hat?
Yeah, he certainly looks anxious, probably about the long sea voyage ahead. I wonder where they're going. And you can see that the artist has shown them kind of sheltering from the wind and the waves. Really doesn't look like a lot of fun to be on this boat. And you can see there's a tiny child's hand peeking out from the wife's cloak, if you look really, really closely. So no wonder he's really anxious. He's taking his young family on a really long, dangerous voyage.
So is this a real story about the artist?
No, not quite, but it's based on the story of his friend who really did emigrate.
So I guess people have been taking their families to make a better life overseas for quite a long time, and it must have been really worrying for him.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I think is really interesting about this painting is that Ford Madox Brown did a whole series of studio studies for all the different characters in this boat, and he actually used his family and friends for those. There's even a story where he made his wife sit outside in the freezing cold so that her skin would be cool for the painting.
Well, that's quite a dedication, isn't it, for art?